Flow, 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 flow. Balogun, Flo Balogun is on this roster, everyone. Can you believe it? BJ Callahan has called in his first roster for Nations League. And we're gonna go through all of that today, the omissions, who's on it, whatever, but we're gonna start with the best thing first, which is the starting 11. No, we are not starting with the goalkeeper core and working our way up from here. We're starting with the best thing first. Let's go through the starting 11 of this roster, then we'll go through everyone that made this roster, talk about the players that should be on it that aren't, who's injured, what's happening. I don't know where I am right now, but let's go through the starting 11. Okay, obviously I'm picking Flo Balogun to start at the number 9 striker position. There is a small case to be made that Ricardo Pepi should start this match against Mexico because he has the chemistry, everything built already with the team. But I just think 21 goals in Liga for a bad team. He's 21 years old, he's on loan from Arsenal. He's the best thing we have at the position. He's just committed his future to us. Let's reward that. Start him against Mexico. The number 9, starting for the US, Flo Balogun. It just rolls off the tongue right now. Flo Balogun will be the starting number 9 for the US. Then at left wing, we have Christian Pulisic. At right wing, you have Timothy Weah. I'm playing in a 4-2-3-1, so Gio Reyna is my 10, ahead of the 2 pivots, which are Weston McKennie and Yunus Musa. And then my defensive line from left to right is Anthony Jedi Robinson. Then you have Chris Richards, who is great with both feet in that left center back position. Miles Robinson, the Atlanta United defender, hasn't really skipped a beat since his injury. He's just a year older now, but he's still doing great in Major League Soccer. He's my right center back. And then Serginho Dest, who had a disappointing loan spell to AC Milan. He needs game time and he always shows up for the US, so he is at right back for me. And then Matt Turner, oh keeper, my keeper. You are starting number 1 in net for the US. What do you think? Do you agree with me? What's your starting 11? Who would you change in mine? All right, let's talk about the goalkeeper core now. Matt Turner hasn't gotten much minutes with Arsenal, and with their leap into the Champions League for next season, I doubt he's going to see an increase in minutes. Unless something happens to Aaron Ramsdale, Matt Turner is still gonna see the bench for Arsenal, but I do think, especially out of this core with Zach Steffen being injured, Ethan Horvath having just gone through an incredible season to get Luton promoted into the Premier League, what we have left is no competition for Matt Turner. He has to be my starting number 1 in net for the US. Now, the other 2 that make sense to me are Josh Cohen and Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson mostly because it's a continuity of culture and someone that's familiar with the team, someone who can really bind and kind of generate a lot of the momentum for building the culture and environment for this team. I understand why Sean Johnson is there, and it looks like in Toronto, maybe Bob Bradley's gonna be turning things around. We'll see. Josh Cohen, however, is, if you don't know who this is a goalkeeper from Maccabi Haifa. They play in Israel. However, he does have Champions League minutes with them. And if you do want to learn more about his story, it's a pretty incredible story. He was essentially a walk-on at University of California, San Diego, made his way into the lower leagues, USL, played for Birmingham Dragons, I think, and then moved across into Maccabi Haifa, won the starting spot in goalkeeper, and they made the Champions League. And he has minutes there, he has shutouts against big teams. So if you do want to learn more about that story, there is a video on my channel. I'll link it in the card up here. Make sure to go and watch that if you are interested in Josh Cohen's story after this. Now, the last goalkeeper on this list, we brought 4 goalkeepers. I don't really know what that is about, but Drake Callender is a goalkeeper for Inter Miami. I don't really understand this move, and I'm wondering if it's to make sure that, you know, if there's an injury or like in practice, we have 4 goalkeepers so we can have 2 games going at once. But Drake Callender, for me, isn't one of the better goalkeepers in Major League Soccer. So why wouldn't you bring Roman Celentano on FC Cincinnati? I think deserves a call. He's 23 years old and is at the top of a lot of the stats for the league. But Drake Callender is a weird one because he's not a standout in Major League Soccer. He has 2 clean sheets in 15 matches. He's given up 19 goals. He is 5th in save percentage, but again, I just don't feel like that's enough to bring him into this group. He's not at the level that the other ones are at. Sean Johnson, we know what he's about. We know he can perform on the day. Josh Cohen has Champions League pedigree. And then you have Matt Turner, who has been doing it for the US for years and years now. Again, Zach Steffen is injured. It looks like he had knee surgery the other day and is recovering. Ethan Horvath has probably a lot on his mind in terms of He's just gotten Luton into the Premier League. He was on loan this season from Nottingham Forest. So what's going to happen with his future? I assume that he's not with this team because 1, he needs a rest, and 2, he needs to spend some time deciding what next season is going to look like and where he's going to play. All right, at fullback, we brought 3 with us. Serginho Dest, who mostly plays on the right, Anthony Robinson, who is a very left-footed left wing back, and then you have Joe Scally, who can play both of the fullback positions. So it does make a lot of sense to me that we are going to have a semifinal against Mexico and then either a third place game or a final a few days after. Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson are the natural starters for me in this position, but if they do need a spell or if we need someone that can play either on the left or the right, you can have someone that plays in a 4-back and a 5-back with Joe Scally. So he's very versatile in that sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, you don't want to overload the fullback position in this roster. All of the other interesting names like Jonathan Gomez, Caleb Wiley, they're all with the U20 squad that's going to be having their quarterfinal match on Sunday this coming weekend. So they're not going to be available. And then you kind of drop down into the MLS depth charts of like DeAndre Edlin or maybe Reggie Cannon, who has been playing again for Boa Vista in Portugal. But it's not really worth it, I don't think, to bring any additional fullbacks in. All right, moving to the center backs, we have Chris Richards from Crystal Palace, Miles Robinson from Atlanta United, Austin Trusty, who was on loan from Arsenal at Birmingham City, and Walker Zimmerman from Nashville SC. It will be great to see Chris Richards back to full health. I do think for the last few years he has been the center back for us that has the highest ceiling, but he's just been injured too much to be able to show that for Crystal Palace. So now that he's back healthy, he's had some rest at Palace, he's able to come into this US team and really show us that he is the #1 on the depth chart. Austin Trusty had an incredible season at Birmingham City. He was voted player of the season for them in the English Championship. Again, on loan from Arsenal, I think he has a lot to prove with this team. And while I do think against Mexico, we'll probably go with Chris Richards and Miles Robinson, if we do play a 3 in the back system, Austin Trusty did play in that system in the championship at Birmingham. And I really think we can trust him just throwing him into the deep end and seeing how he does. He is good enough to do that. I do think also, if you look at the way that Arsenal's back end of the season ended with a lot of their center back pool being ravaged by injuries and not having anyone to really step into that position, there is a genuinely realistic, albeit slim, chance that Austin Trusty gets some spot minutes for Arsenal and makes his way into that roster next season. I don't think people are really paying enough attention to how good he actually was for Birmingham City this season. And I do think we can stop here and talk about some snubs, because the center back position has 2 that I really want to highlight. The first is Mark McKenzie for Genk. He's been scoring loads and he's been playing well for one of the teams that is in the top 3 and 4 teams in his league. Then you have John Anthony Brooks, who I think should be making a return to this roster. He joined Hoffenheim from Benfica in the January transfer window this season and started most of Hoffenheim's games to see them to safety, and he was just voted their player of the month for the last month. That again was their campaign to be safe from relegation. John Brooks does deserve to be back on the squad, and it feels like a weird hill to die on that we're going to bring 4 goalkeepers and hold one of Mark McKenzie and John Brooks back. I also think Walker Zimmerman is one of the weaker points on this roster, so even if you brought 4 goalkeepers, if you switch one of the John Brooks and Mark McKenzie's out for Walker Zimmerman, that would have made sense. But again, Walker Zimmerman kind of makes sense in the same light that Sean Johnson does for me. But I can also see Walker Zimmerman getting minutes in these games. Okay, in the midfield, we have Johnny Cardoso, Luca De La Torre, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Gio Reyna, and Alan Signora. I do think it's really interesting that Gio Reyna is listed as a midfielder here, and that I think gives me a sense that Timothy Weah is going to be the starting right wing here. And with Anthony Hudson, with BJ Callahan, kind of the exclusion of Greg Berhalter, the straight flat 4-3-3, I do think that we have a chance to see Gio Reyna in a central attacking position, which I think is the right way to utilize him, especially in this team. There's also no Tyler Adams because he hasn't recovered from injury yet. There's not really a natural 6 on this team. Johnny Cardoso is the closest to that, but he is playing a bit more of a box-to-box for his club team right now. I think if we go with the 4-2-3-1, we can have a double pivot there, whether it's Weston McKennie or Johnny Cardoso playing the more defensive one. But Yunus Musa is kind of locked in for me just because of how he shows up every game and how important he is to the US's style. I also think in this group, Paxton Aronson and Tanner Tessman probably had shouts to make it on the fringes, but we could see them with the Gold Cup roster, so I'm not too miffed about them. Malik Tillman is still hurt, so really we have the best of the best that are with us. And even if we're getting into the fringes of the depth chart, if we're talking about Timothy Tillman or Tanner Tessman, they're not really going to start over Weston McKennie and Yunus Musa. Okay, and at wing, we're pretty much set with Brenden Aaronson, Taylor Booth, Timothy Weah, Christian Pulisic, and Ali Zendejas. Nothing really jumps out here. We're pretty much stacked at the wing position, and there's not really room for anyone to break through at this point. Taylor Booth is the closest to it, and he's probably the most deserving as well. I could maybe see a Georgi Mihailovic having a shout, but really, if you're looking at comparing apples to apples, Taylor Booth has been having a much better season for much longer periods of time than Georgi Mihailovic has. I am somewhat interested to see what Aaronson's role on this roster is, because Christian Pulisic is going to be the left wing starter, Timothy Weah is probably going to be the right wing starter, but Brenden Aaronson has had a horrid time at Leeds post-World Cup, but he always shows up in US colors. So is this a moment to kind of build back his confidence and get him in front of goal again? It might be the time that it's just what he needs at this moment to kind of reset his focus and reset his confidence going into next season. If Reina does play at the number 10 in the midfield, then it is very obvious to me who the starters are going to be in the front three. We're lucky to have so many depth pieces at this position, and I think you really can't ask for better substitutes than Brenden Aaronson, Ali Zendejas, and Taylor Booth at this point. Okay, and up top at striker, we called in Ricardo Pepi. On loan from Augsburg at Groningen, he had a great season for a poor team. And then Flo Balogun, again, I just can't stop saying that. Flo Balogun is the other striker on this list committed to the US through this time period. And we know that Josh Sargent is injured. That's why he's not on this list. Daryl Dike is still out injured. There's really only two players that you're going to see on this list. You can make a shout that Jesus Ferreira or Jeremy Ebubisse, who is killing it in San Jose, maybe we see them in the Gold Cup. But for right now, against Mexico in the Nations League with a Euro-heavy roster, we got to go with our two best, which I think are Ricardo Pepi and Flo Balogun. Okay, that's basically it. You've heard my opinions on the starting 11. You've heard my opinions on these players and each of the positions. What do you think about this roster? Do you think this is good enough to get the job done against Mexico and go all the way for the second Nations League in a row for the US to win, continue to be kings of CONCACAF, and win as many trophies as possible? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as that really helps us out and it helps to show other people content like this. And if you want to see that Josh Cohen video that shows his story going from a walk-on in college to Champions League player, make sure to watch this video next. I'll see you guys next time on It's Called Soccer. Peace.